What's up everyone, Michael here with another vlog. Today I want to talk about something that's actually quite relevant to the channel because I do reviews and I do checking out videos as well, which is basically early reviews. It's like my early repression series. So if you actually been looking at my channel and been like, he hasn't done a lot of reviews lately, check out the, whatchamacallit, the checking out series, which is basically taken over the early impression style reviews that I used to do. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check those out. But I want to talk about reviews. I want to talk about what a review is supposed to be, technically, because we've been seeing this topic comes up all the freaking time, as in like people are like, oh well, this review isn't a review because it doesn't have this, or oh, this is a review because it has this, and it doesn't really matter if it is or not in technical terms. People kind of have an expectation, and I kind of want to talk about that, especially since, you know, I'm doing reviews. It seems kind of important to be like, this is my view on this sort of stuff. And so yeah, hopefully this is interesting. Probably won't be, but of course, let's go ahead and talk about it. So yeah, basically I don't know what a review is supposed to be, and I'm going to be straight out with that, because a review isn't something that is standard. Oh, I fricked that up. Whoops. A review isn't something that's standard, and so you don't really have a definition for it. I mean, it's supposed to be like a review of a product, and a review, as in like a definition, it is to view something, like quite literally view something. Oh, hey, there's one of these. I'm doing it. Let me in. How do I, there we go. And so the word review doesn't really make sense inside of its own like technical complex, because it's like, it's just a single word that we use and you can use it for literally anything. It's like, oh, I reviewed the document because I looked at said document. I wonder if I can freaking break this. Nope, I never done this before, so I'm probably gonna be a little bit lost. Apologies for this. Oh, and I'm off the cliff. That didn't last very long. So I want to talk about like what I think a review is, and then why I'm wrong and why I'm also right. Because a review, the word itself, doesn't actually mean anything. And so what you end up looking at is you actually look at what people are looking for inside of a review. There are a ton of different reviews. You know, for example, I do what I call impressions reviews, which could be taken as something completely different than somebody else. If somebody ends up doing a review, they might do something like, let's say a standard review, for example. You end up having it so it's like written, and so it has like a long list of things. It's like, oh, I'm going to talk about gameplay first, and then I'm going to talk about story, and then I'm going to talk about, I screwed this up so hardcore, and then I'm gonna talk about this, and it does like a nice orderly fashion. Then maybe it has a score at the end. But we've actually gone to a point where a lot of reviews don't have scores anymore, because for one, using scores is not particularly efficient, because you're looking at them and you're like, oh well, I have to rate this game along with every single other game on the same scale, which is next to impossible. And so review scores aren't really a thing, but some people want those, and some people want that comparison because they want that comparison between all these different games. It's like, okay, well, if all these games get, I want to get a game that's a 9 or a 10 because I don't have all that much time, or I don't have that much money to end up buying a bunch of games, and so that could be useful for them. Other people are looking for in-depth mechanics and in-depth story, and that's what I end up doing. My impressions reviews, they're called impressions reviews because they're in my impressions, but it, like, honestly, if I didn't have the whole search optimization issue with, you know, impressions, for example, and I didn't really do my impression style, if I just removed my thoughts from it completely, it really wouldn't be a review, would it? It would be more of, let's say it would be like a mechanical overview, almost. It'd be like a story and mechanical overview, I think that's how I was trying to describe it before, because I don't really do a lot of the things that a normal review would do. I don't try to compare it to other games. Every once in a while I will when it's relevant, but I try and just look at its mechanics and its story individually and be like, oh, is this worth playing? Is it maybe not worth playing? And more specifically, is it worth playing for somebody else? Maybe it's one of the styles of games that, you know, I don't necessarily enjoy, but I still look at the mechanics and the story because that's what my reviews are. And so to me, that's what I wanted a review to be, because that's what I wanted out of a review. I would watch so many reviews or read so many reviews, and like none of them were very helpful. And let's say, for example, I'm a huge Sonic fan. I love the Sonic games. No, they're not perfect, but the reviews for them didn't really make much sense to me most of the time. Because you end up looking at these reviews, and these reviews are like, oh, well, Sonic's terrible as always, because of course they are. And it didn't help me, because they would try to explain why every once in a while, but most of the time they weren't relevant to me specifically. I'd be like, all right, well, you know, obviously I like the Sonic games, and so I like these small tropes that they end up doing, or I like this style, etc., and I don't mind that it's super buggy, etc. And so to me, those reviews were completely useless. However, to other people, they may agree with those reviews. They may think that and be like, oh, hey. And I don't agree with the whole mentality that all Sonic games are bad. I've talked about that way too often before, and maybe I'll end up doing it like a dedicated video specifically to that one of these days. But actually, I might record that after this because I'm really feeling like I should talk about it. But a review isn't necessarily a structure that is going to carry over from everyone else, because a review, like I said, is literally just you looking at something. It is you looking over a product. And so when you end up doing a review, anybody can do a review and everyone is right in their assessment. Now, I do believe there are certain things that aren't necessarily reviews, as in you can end up looking at certain reviews to where they're like, you know, disingenuine. So it's like, oh, this was a paid product placement or whatever. Oh, well, that worked. I'm okay with that. And so, you know, that's not a review. Or maybe they didn't play the product and they're just giving their thoughts. I don't think that's a review because they didn't actually, you know, review the product. They didn't look at the product and say, oh, this is what I wanted out of it, or this is what I got out of it, or this is what it is, etc., etc. And one of the things that really kind of spurred my sort of passion for this topic all of a sudden, the reason why I'm recording it today, is because I don't know what you guys people follow, but like if you follow Jim Sterling, who's a great critic, by the way. I don't agree with most of what he thinks, but of course, you know, that's how this works. You know, when somebody makes a critique, you can agree or disagree. That's how it works. A review doesn't have to agree with everything, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But he released a video, or rather a remastered version of one of his old Jim. Where the hell am I supposed to go? I am lost. Oh my god, I don't care that there was too much sauce on that pizza. I want to know where to go. I'm supposed to go up, aren't I? I'm such an idiot when I try to play this type of game in the background. But yeah, he released a remastered version of his old video that was a 100% objective review, but I realized, like, even in that review, to where he was talking about Final Fantasy 13, which a lot of people don't like. I enjoy it. I have a whole video on it if you want to sit there and listen to me talking about it forever. It's available. But, you know, even that review that was supposed to be 100% objective wasn't 100% objective. There were a lot of things inside that video that weren't necessarily true of the game itself and could necessarily, you know, go in a different direction. Like, for example, it said that the game was a JRPG, and some would argue that it's not a JRPG. And a review is all about opinions. It's about finding people, if you're looking for reviews, it's about finding people that agree with your style of opinion. There is something I'm supposed to do here, and I am not figuring it out, and it is slightly upsetting me. Is there a way I can go up? Hold on, I'll go over here. And so when it goes into a review, what is a review supposed to be? Depends what you're looking for. It depends what your opinion is. It depends what you think of the products, and it depends on what you end up liking out of certain things. Let's say there is a product, let's say it's a game or whatever, and you like strategy games. I'm gonna be terrible for that because I don't cover a lot of strategy. I figured it out, guys. I figured it freaking out. I am so happy. Can I go up like this? Oh, no, it just set me back. Where the hell am I? I am lost. I have enough that I could continue. Was there more over there? I don't think so. I'm gonna continue. Yell at me in the comments if I'm wrong. But like, you know, for me, I don't cover a lot of, like, let's say 4X strategy games, for example. I think they're interesting, but I'm terrible at them and I don't play them very often. And so when it ends up going into it, I would be a terrible reviewer for that, for if you're somebody that's really into it. However, if you're somebody who's not into them, I might be a great resource, because if I check out a 4X and I'm like, oh yeah, this is really easy to get into and I really like it, and you're not somebody who normally plays 4X, that could be really, really useful. And so what is a review? It's gonna be whatever the heck you need it to be, and you need to end up finding your own critics. There are people that are going around, and this is another thing that, you know, ends up coming up all the time, is to where people are like, you reviewed this game wrong. And the reality is, no, they reviewed the game like they wanted to review the game. They said what they wanted to say about the game, and that's how you're supposed to do a review. If you don't agree with them, that's fine. Find a different reviewer that maybe does, and maybe end up looking out what else they end up doing. Obviously, if you already have an opinion on a game, it's not necessarily useful to look up a review. I do appreciate when people check out my reviews anyways, just because they want to hear my thoughts, and I think that's really awesome. So that's cool, and I actually really like that some people do end up going back and looking at some of my stuff and being like, I wonder what his thoughts are on this, which is really, really cool. It doesn't happen often because I'm not all that big, but it does happen. So that makes me feel good. Just wanted to throw that out there. But, you know, it's one of those cases to where you need to find reviewers that are going to agree with you. And maybe you won't find a reviewer that you end up agreeing with on everything. There are certain reviewers, for example, like I'll look at some reviewers like Total Biscuit. I really wish he was doing videos again, but he's got stuff going on. So this is the first time, I just now realized, this is the first time I've actually talked about the other YouTubers that I watch. So that's a little bbit strange. Sorry if that's different and strange. This is my vlog series, and so I just talk about whatever the hell I want to. But like, his reviews, he checks out strategy games, for example, or space games, etc., etc., and I'm not necessarily interested in those, and he hates platformers. But I love platformers, and so any review that he does for a platformer is completely useless to me, because my opinion is going to greatly differ from his, and he's not good at platformers, but I tend to be fairly decent at them, except for in the background when I'm doing it in a vlog, because that's just how these are. And so when I look at his reviews, I won't check out those. However, when he checks out a strategy game, or one of the space strategy games or something like that, I end up looking at it because that's actually useful to me because I really love space stuff and he knows his space stuff. And so when he ends up looking at his space stuff, I can be like, oh, hey, he knows what he's talking about. I should end up kind of looking at this and seeing what his opinions are, and he'll know whether it's a good game or not for somebody who likes space stuff. And so it can be useful. But maybe that's not always going to be useful for me. Maybe I can end up looking at somebody else, for example. I don't really look at a lot of reviews. I like to just look up researches and just kind of like see what people are thinking and then try it out for myself if I possibly can. And so I don't necessarily do a lot of review searching like I used to do in the old days. But back before I did reviews, and back before I did a lot of trying my own games, back before I ran a YouTube channel, etc., I would end up looking at a bunch of different reviews. I have no idea where I'm supposed to go, and I am so lost. This is probably a bad idea to play in the background because I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. Oh my god, I'm so lost. Wait, it slowed down when I was in here, didn't it? Doesn't that mean I'm close? No, it didn't. Oh my god, I am so sorry. I will find it eventually. But yeah, I would look at different resources, and for example, for free-to-play MMOs, which was actually my original inspiration for reviews. I'll talk about that in another video one of these days. But they were talking about free-to-play games, and there were certain channels that I would be like, you know, I could agree with what these guys are saying. I think they're logical and they have some really good reasoning, etc. And so I'm like, yeah, you know what? They're good. But then I would watch other channels and I'd be like, I don't really agree with this, or I don't really agree with the style that they end up doing, or they end up bashing games that I really, really enjoy all the time. And I'm like, maybe I don't look at these, and it's useful for some people. Oh, there it is. Oh my god, I found it. Told you I would. And so they could end up being useful for other people because maybe they're the type of person who would end up looking at that sort of game and being like, oh, that's exactly what I think. Other times, maybe not. Maybe it's not something that they would end up looking at, and maybe it's going to change depending on what you're looking at. So basically, to answer the question, and really what I kind of wanted to get out here, is that what is a review? Well, a review is whatever the reviewer wants it to be. If they want to just end up talking about graphics, if they just want to talk about one specific thing. Maybe in certain cases, I will agree that there have been, oh, I didn't find all the pictures. Crap, I'm going to have to go back to there in the future, which I'm totally okay with. But maybe you end up going through and you're like, oh, I didn't mean to accept that. Whoops. So maybe, you know, the reviewer just wants to talk about a certain aspect or something like that. I do agree that there are some reviews that definitely don't feel like reviews. There are some examples that I could pull out for Bayonetta, for example. There were some people that were like, this is a sexist game, etc., which I strongly disagree with that. I think that is the most inclusive game to ever exist because it is fantastic. It's an overly sexualized woman because she wants to be overly sexualized, and I think that's perfectly okay. Because we have plenty of games where it's an over-sexualized male, and it's perfectly fine. So I think it's great. Bayonetta is also one of my favorite games of all time, so that kind of makes sense. But, you know, they would end up using it to kind of target certain things, and they weren't actually talking about the game. I don't think if you're doing a review for a game specifically, because I do reviews on games, that's what I'm going to talk about, obviously, then you should end up looking at that. But, you know, even for movies, for example, they can end up, you know, if they end up not talking about the movie, I don't think it's a review because it's talking about what that product is because you looked at said product. But if you're not actually looking at the product, then I guess it doesn't really feel like a review all that much. But again, maybe it's subjective. Maybe that's what you want out of your review. Maybe you're looking at it as like, what games are and aren't sexist to my opinion and, you know, circle or whatever. You know, maybe that's what you want. And to be honest, maybe that is a review for you specifically. And maybe that's what you're looking for. And that's perfectly fine because a review is whatever the reviewer wants it to be. And if as a viewer, you look at a review and you're like, maybe I don't agree with this, that's perfectly fine because they're opinions. They are supposed to be structured so that you can make an informed decision. And if it's not helping you make an informed decision, look at a different review. You should never just look at one review or one source. Maybe you can end up looking at one review, but make sure you have multiple sources on different things so that, oh my God, I'm just doing this over and over again. That's just it. And so just make sure you end up, you know, checking all your sources because that's what a review is as well. It's meant to be a resource. Some people just do reviews to do reviews and have fun, which I do that every once in a while. That's why I started doing them. It's because, like, I couldn't find reviews that I liked, and so I started, like, I'm just going to make my own reviews because that's what I do. And so that was the thing. But, yeah, so if you're ever wondering and getting mad at people for a review, I know that people like to scream about review numbers and stuff like that. I don't do numbers. I just do, like, whether I recommend it or not and who I try to recommend it to and give suggestions based on the type of gamer that people are. Like, oh, like, let's say it's a JRPG. I'm obviously going to recommend it to JRPG players if it's a good JRPG, but maybe it's one that, like, let's say Tales of Zestiria is a great example for this because I recommended it to people that are new to the JRPG genre, but for veterans, I said it was going to be a bit lacking. Not that it was a bad game, but it had some problems. And then for Tales of Berseria, it was almost the opposite to where I was like, this is absolutely fantastic. Actually, I haven't actually finished recording my review for that. Oh, God. I completely forgot I never finished my review. Oh my God, I might go play that and finish my review for it. I have been wanting to play a JRPG. I was talking to somebody about that, and so I might do that later today. Anyways, I'm gonna end this here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this one. Vlogs aren't normally what I do, but if you want to end up checking out my reviews and stuff like that, you can end up doing that. So if you want to, look at my impressions review and see what I was talking about, then there's plenty of them on the channel. I don't release them very often because I like to actually complete the game. Oh my god, I did it again. Oh my god, I'm such a failure. Yeah, so I don't release impressions reviews very often because I like to actually go through, beat the game, and like do as much as I possibly can, and I play it basically until the point to where I don't want to play it anymore, or I end up finishing the game. One of those two, and I kind of end up doing it that way. So yeah, if you want to end up checking out those, they're there. But if you end up looking at my channel and you're like, man, I really want more of his review style stuff, check out my checking out series. That's so weird to say. Check out my checking out series. That is basically an early impressions series. I might just change it to early impressions, but I don't want it to like conflict with my actual impressions reviews, because my impressions reviews are like really in-depth type of stuff, to whereas the checking out stuff is like, this is my first thoughts within the first few hours or whatever. And so yeah, it's just kind of like a first look sort of thing going on. So yeah, go ahead and check that out if you're interested. Also, you can check out our gaming. Oh yeah, you can leave comments on your thoughts about what reviews are. I forgot to mention that that's a thing. I always forget to mention comments and stuff like that. I'm terrible at outros. And you can also end up checking out my other styles of content on my website at michaelpstanich.com. And of course, if you want to end up talking about gaming and stuff, you can end up checking out our gaming Discord called the Broken Chat Box. Link in the description. We have gaming nights. I haven't been in any of our gaming stuff for a while because I've been busy and I've been like working on videos and I've been talking with people, and et cetera, et cetera. And Evan has been obsessively playing Fortnite. So if you want to play Fortnite, you can go join him. He has this group of Discord people that he ended up finding just to play specifically Fortnite, the PvE mode. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and message him on the Broken Chat Box. Again, link in the description for all this stuff. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm gonna stop talking so I can actually finish this section of the level, because I normally am not this bad at platformers. It's just when I'm talking and trying to think of what to say, especially in a vlog that's not scripted, because these are not scripted whatsoever. You can probably tell. I screw up a lot when I'm playing because I don't know what I'm doing, and hopefully I didn't miss any collectibles just there, because I feel like they would have hid something there, because devs are devious.